General Moses, a recognized member of the Egyptian royal line, gets ready to launch an assault on a Hittite army that is camped outside Kadesh about 1300 BC alongside Prince Ramesses. A high priestess uses animal intestines to divine a prophecy that she connects to Seti, the father of Ramesses. He shares the prophecy with the two men, saying that one of them, Ramesses or Moses, will save the other and rise to prominence. Both men are troubled when Moses saves Ramesses' life during the conflict. Subsequently, Moses offers to accompany his cousin to Pithom in order to meet Viceroy Hejep, who is in charge of the Hebrew slaves. He is horrified by the state of the slaves when he arrives and sees Joshua, a slave, being beaten. Moses talks with the elders of the slaves to find out if, as the viceroy alleged, the slaves are plotting a sedition. Following those talks, Joshua informs Moses that Nun is trying to find him. When Moses finds Nun in the prayer place, Nun tells him about his true ancestry. He was born during the elimination of the Jewish heirs and is the child of Hebrew parents who was sent by his sister Miriam to be reared by Pharaoh's daughter. After being taken aback by the discovery, Moses storms out. On the way out, he is ambushed by two guards, whom he promptly dispatches. But Nun's story is overheard by two Hebrews, who inform the viceroy of it. After Moses returns home, Ramesses II, succeeds Seti as pharaoh shortly after Seti's death. When Hejep tells Ramesses Moses' true ancestry, Ramesses is unconvinced. He questions the servant Miriam, who disputes being Moses' sister, at Queen Tuya's request. Moses steps in and declares that Ramesses is a Hebrew, stopping him before he can chop off her arm. Tuya wants Moses slain, but Ramesses exiles him since he still doesn't think the story is true. Moses meets Miriam, his adopted mother, and before departing Egypt, Miriam calls him by his real name, Moshe. Moses travels through the desert before arriving in Midian, where he meets Zipporah and her father, Jethro. Moses marries Zipporah, takes up shepherding, and has a son named Gershom. Moses sustains injuries in a rockslide years later. He comes upon a flaming bush and a young man named Malach, who is a messenger for Abraham's God. 5. As he recuperates, Moses tells Zipporah about his background and what God has called him to accomplish. Moses leaves despite the fact that this strains their relationship. In Egypt, Moses first meets his brother Aaron and gets back together with Nun and Joshua. Moses approaches Ramesses and demands that the Hebrews be freed from captivity. Refusing to hear it, Ramesses maintains that it is not feasible economically to let them free. After Moses threatens to kill Ramesses, Ramesses orders Moses to be killed and that random Hebrew families be killed until Moses is located. When Moses uses his military prowess to lead the slaves in an insurrection and train them, Ramesses takes severe reprisals. Moses is visited by a messenger from God who informs him that Egypt will experience 10 plagues. Even after Egypt and its people suffer greatly from the first 9 plagues, Ramesses does not give up and even persecutes his own people in order to keep his position. Moses carries out God's plan, telling the Hebrews to cover their doors with the blood of lambs, even though he is appalled to learn that the 10th plague will cause the death of all firstborn children. All of Egypt's firstborn children perish that night, including Ramesses' little son. Devastated, Ramesses gives up and lets the Hebrews go. The Hebrews travel through the desert and arrive at the Red Sea by following Moses' original route during the Exodus. With his army gathered, Ramesses sets forth, still grieving for his son. Moses and the Hebrews reach the sea's edge and are at a loss for what to do after navigating a treacherous mountain route. Moses throws his sword into the sea out of desperation, and it recedes, making way for passage to the other side. Moses stays behind to fight Ramesses and his army as they pursue. Most Egyptians who are still crossing are drowned as the Red Sea reverts. After surviving, Moses returns to the Hebrews. Ramesses, devastated by the loss of his troops, also makes it out alive. After leading the Hebrews back to Midian, Moses meets up with Gershom and Zipporah again. Moses writes down the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. Many years later, an aged Moses traveling with the Ark of the Covenant witnesses the Hebrew people strolling in the desert with God's messenger.